Thank you everyone so much for your patience and for joining us this morning here in California for our EAP pre-arrival webinar. Just as starters, my name is Amy Chin Pokril. I am an International Student Advisor, also the Customer Relations Manager here at Berkeley International Office. Paulette?
I'm Paulette Greisner. I'm the Director of Reciprocal Exchanges in the System-Wide Office for UCEAP.
And good morning, everyone. I'm Olivia Kaufman. I'm the UCEAP Reciprocity Advisor at UC Berkeley, and my office is within the Berkeley Summer Sessions, Study Abroad, Lifelong Learning, and University Extension, a very long name, but basically I'm your UCEAP contact here at UC Berkeley.
Yeah, so today's webinar will be recorded and will be placed on our website. The slide will also be emailed to you at the end of the webinar. So don't feel like you need to take down notes. You will get the slides at the end of the webinar. For today's agenda, we will be going over a small introduction of University of California, Berkeley, a little bit of who we are as Berkeley International Office, finding housing, campus resources, some travel information, and then we have a Q&A section at the end with one of our current EAP students as well. So you'll be able to ask questions to see what her experience was like at UC Berkeley. So let's go ahead and get started. The University of California, Berkeley was founded in 1868. It is the first campus of the University of California system. We are part of the top 10 universities nationwide and ranked as the #1 public university worldwide. We offer more than 350 degree programs and are proud to have 32 Nobel laureates as part of our alumni. As Berkeley, we also have a mascot, and it's fondly known as Oski the bear, and that's on the right-hand side. So a little bit of our international student population here at Berkeley. In fall of 2021, we had approximately 7,845 international students with us. 50% of them are undergrad students, 47% of them are graduate students, and then we have 3% that are UCEAP students. And so that amounted to about 193 students in fall of 2021. In spring 2022, we welcome 102 EAP students, and for this fall, we have 249 students coming in for the EAP program. I'm so excited to see these numbers growing and to have more of you on campus. In addition to the 249, 12 students are continuing from the spring semester as well. So just a quick overview of Berkeley International Office, also known as BIO. BIO is responsible for providing programs and services to all of our international students, scholars, and their dependents. BIO functions to ensure that all visiting international students and scholars have a successful academic and personal experience during their stay at UC Berkeley. We provide advising on matters related to federal regulations, academic procedures, personal adjustments, and career development. We host the International Student Orientation, have a variety of workshops and social programs. We provide advising and support related to personal and cultural adjustments, navigating campus, and visa-related matters. If you have a question or if you'd like to speak with any of us, we are open for advising in person and virtually over Zoom on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. So if you haven't yet, I strongly encourage you to have a look at our website. It has a lot of helpful information on how to apply for a visa, what documents you'll need in order to travel to the US, how to prepare for your trip into the US, request forms, contact information, events, campus, and community resources. Additionally, our website is frequently updated with a rapidly changing travel and immigration guidance. Thus, I would highly recommend that you review it prior to your entry into the US. We're also active on social media. You can go to our website to click on any of those icons to get connected with us. Join us on our social media to get quick updates and useful information and reminders. Next, let's talk about housing. If you haven't secured housing, now is the time to do so. We have a website dedicated to housing, and it has a lot of resources on it. So let's talk about what are some of those options for housing. There are 3 types of housing options to look at for on-campus housing. As far as I know, I think the deadline to apply for that was on May 2nd, 2022. But if you are still interested in on-campus housing, you can always reach out to them. The more open you are with your housing preference, the better your odds are in obtaining a space. Campus housing plans to offer a wide variety of housing options to students. Occupancy levels are determined based on public health guidance. The second option is semi-on-campus. So we have the co-ops. The co-ops are a large residence unit where membership is based on shared resources. Every resident is expected to contribute in household responsibility. So this is a great option if you like to get connected with other students quickly. International House is a dormitory style residence that is open to all students, domestic and international. It comes with a meal plan. It functions very similarly to an on-campus residence hall. They also host international programs and events throughout the year. So last I checked yesterday, applications are still open. So if you haven't secured housing yet, I would highly recommend that you look at the International House to see if you're able to secure housing with them. And then last but not least, we have off-campus housing. So with the school year just starting back up, there are going to be lots and lots of options to pick from. I would highly recommend that you review our housing page for tips on how to find housing off-campus that suits your needs. So if you're looking for off-campus housing, you may be wondering, where should I look at? So let's have a brief overview of the Berkeley map. On the north side of this map, generally housing in this area are more expensive just because the apartments and the housing are nicer. It's a quieter area, it's close to grocery stores. More times grad students live in those areas. But it's a little bit further away from campus and there are fewer buses that access that side of campus. Compared with the south side of campus, south side is often cheaper, but quality of the housing may not be as good as the north side. But there are a wide variety of places to choose from. It's close to BART, many buses come through the area, more student friendly. It's a very bustling, alive area, close to shops, and can get loud on weekends just because there are more restaurants and events happening on the south side of campus. Now let's go to the west side of downtown Berkeley. The downtown Berkeley is where the BART is at. So it's the main transport hub of Berkeley. It has lots of buses. It's close to several grocery stores and shops. But because it's downtown and it's the hub of Berkeley itself, it can be a little bit more expensive due to its location. It can be a little bit further away from campus. Just because more of the campus buildings are in the central or the north or south side, really depending on where your classes will be at. But one of the good things about being downtown Berkeley is that Bio is located right here. We are actually right outside of downtown Berkeley BART station. So if you're still wondering where to live, here are some points to consider. Do you want to live on or off campus? What are your budget plans? Would you like to have a meal plan? Would you like to have a roommate? How do you want to commute to campus? Are you okay with walking to campus, or do you want to take a bus? Would you rather cycle? And then also, which area fits your needs the best? So these are some questions that I would encourage you to consider as you choose your housing. Some of the precautions that we would like to remind you of. It's always the best to think about, the world out there, but not everyone has the best intentions, right? So be aware of housing scams. This can appear online on sites such as Craigslist and Facebook. An easy way to know that it is a scam is if a person is offering the place and is insisting that you send money prior to you actually visiting the place or seeing the place for yourself. If you're wanting to secure an accommodation prior to arrival, I would highly recommend that you have a friend or a relative that you know who is here around the area to do a tour of the property on your behalf, or ask the landlord to see if they can do a video call for you to show you the place. Even then, I highly recommend that you only pay or put down deposit after you've actually seen the place for yourself. Sometimes there are situations where students have reported that they've put down the deposit and then when they arrive, the place doesn't actually exist. So just be mindful of that. To overcome this, use legitimate sites such as Cal Rentals. Cal Rentals is an off-campus housing website that is vetted by UC Berkeley to look for an off-campus place. Cal Rentals assists university affiliates to find housing off-campus, so they are a legitimate site. Some of the other things to keep in mind: do not send money or give out any personal or immigration details to anyone over the phone or online. Immigration officers will never call you to ask for information. If you're unsure, if you receive a call or if you receive a text and you're unsure what to do about that, please reach out to Bio for assistance and we can assist you with reviewing that information. If you suspect that you have been a victim of a scam, please contact Bio or Olivia immediately so that we can assist you. So just looking at this campus map itself and comparing the cost of living to other campuses, keep in mind that cost of living at Berkeley is significantly higher in comparison to other campuses in the US. But there are certainly ways and steps that you can take to keep this cost down and make sure that your stay is affordable, such as probably eating out less and cooking more at home. There are lots of fresh produce options here at Berkeley, and using public transportation. Parking tends to be expensive around the Bay Area. So I would say if you're hoping to travel to downtown San Francisco, as an example, taking the BART or taking the bus would be a more budget-friendly option. All right, Paulette.
Okay, good morning. Let's take a look at some campus resources to support your study abroad. Campus life is really a big part of the UC experience. The campus is like a small city within a city of Berkeley. It's providing not only classes, food, and housing, but assistance with a variety of services to make your life better. Cal Central is your one-stop shop for administrative issues. The Career Center can help you to identify a campus job or an internship. From Gender Equity Center to the Disabled Students Program, our priority is to support you and to make you feel welcome. The ultimate goal for us at UC is to help you to be successful. Cal has a support structure for all students and specific resources for you as an international student. In addition to Olivia and her colleagues in the Berkeley International Office, and Amy and her colleagues in the Berkeley International Office, you have Olivia, your UCEAP advisor, and many other offices at Cal to help you. UC Berkeley offers a full range of academic support through the Student Learning Center, the library, and other programs. And we'll take a deeper dive into the academic resources available to you on the next slide. We would encourage you to become a part of the Cal community by participating. Join student clubs and organizations, volunteer, and take on leadership roles. By doing that, you'll meet others, make lifelong friends, and you'll also be enriching the environment for Cal students who will be very happy to meet you. A key area for your success is your health and wellness. It's very important that you not only study, but take care of yourself. Take advantage of the health center and counseling center located on campus and available to you with your student card. One of the best ways to stay healthy is to stay active and take part in sports and activities. So one of your challenges, and certainly one of the biggest challenges that you have, is that you will be a student at Cal, but you'll also remain a student at your home university. That means you need to be attentive to the rules and the processes of not one, but two universities. To help you navigate in the Cal academic culture, you'll have three main academic support offices. Department advisors. There is a department advisor in every campus department where you might be studying. They can help you to plan your studies because the advisor will know which courses will be offered during the next terms in the year. They can help you to understand course content. If you have any questions about what is this course about, and they'll tell you if you meet the course requirements so that you can be prepared. Talk to the advisor, explain your study objectives, and they might be able to help you to think of courses and things that would be beneficial to you that you hadn't thought about before. Then you have the instructors and professors. At UC, you shouldn't hesitate to approach your instructors with questions. They have office hours, and these are times that are reserved to meet with students. You just go to the office, meet with the professor. They might have an enrollment system for that or a Zoom system. But you can ask questions about course content, readings, and what is expected of you as a student. Contact your instructors, and they can also help you maybe refine some of your research interests as a student. If graduate school is an objective, this is a really good time to cultivate relationships that will allow you to know the professor, and they can perhaps later provide you a letter of recommendation for other things that you'd like to do academically. And then finally, you have your college advisor. The colleges at Berkeley include College of Engineering, Environmental Design, College of Chemistry, the Haas School, College of Natural Resources, and the largest college, which is the College of Letters and Science. And the college can help you with broader administrative issues, adding, dropping classes, petitions. And dropping class means to disenroll from a class or to cancel your enrollment. And they can also connect you with support resources if you're struggling academically with your courses. Please note these important tips for academic success. Enroll online prior to arrival. Enrollment is a very dynamic system. You might need to spend some time on that because a class might be full one day and not another, but do enroll in as many classes as you can prior to getting to UC. Contact academic advisor and instructors so that you know what to expect. Consider a wide range of courses because maybe a course you thought that you wanted to enroll in is not the right course for you, and you want to have some backup options. Bring your transcript from your home university and your advisor's contact information with you. This will help you to document that you're prepared for courses. See the UCEAP web pages. We have a lot of information and an academic guide there for you. And also attend the Bio and Golden Bear orientations. The most important thing is to not be shy and consider that you're bothering anyone. The UC community and Californians in general are pretty warm and welcoming and friendly. Don't hesitate to ask for help. And if you still have questions, don't worry, you can ask Olivia.
Thank you, Paulette. Yes, exactly. As Paulette said, if you have any questions throughout your program, even before you arrive, I know some of you have already been reaching out to me with questions. I'm happy to take those. And even if I don't have the answer to your question, I'm happy to direct you to the appropriate office, whether it's Amy's team at the Berkeley International Office, the UCEAP team, maybe your academic advisor if you have academic questions. Don't hesitate to send anything my way. My email is listed on this slide. I'm also available for appointments both in person and on Zoom if you're interested in that option. My appointment link is also listed here. You're also welcome to email me to set that up. My office is located at the address on the screen. So it's 1995 University Avenue in downtown Berkeley. It is a separate office from the Berkeley International Office, but not too far away. So if you needed to see two advisors on one day, you could easily make it to both of our offices and enjoy downtown Berkeley while you're visiting us. So please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions and I will direct you to the right place. Next slide, Amy. Great, so now we can talk about the different UC Berkeley student systems. I'm sure you've already started using some of these and familiarizing yourself, but just to kind of do another overview, one of the most important systems is your campus email, which is your B-mail address, we call it here. And that's your UC Berkeley email account, which will mostly be used as the primary mode of communication between you and your UC Berkeley professors, staff, departments, offices like the Berkeley International Office or myself will probably use this email to communicate with you. So make sure that you're checking this email frequently, in addition, of course, to your home university email address or other personal email addresses that you use for your other systems. So if you've not already set up your Bmail, make sure you do that as soon as possible, and be sure that you check it regularly, even starting now. The semester hasn't started yet, but there are still important messages being sent out. So be sure to do that as soon as possible. And if you're having issues or have any questions, please let us know. Next is Cal Central, which Paulette mentioned earlier. So you've probably already visited it, but just as a reminder, this is where you access your NIF to obtain your DS 2019. It also shows any tasks that you need to complete prior to arriving at UC Berkeley. You can use it to update your local address, phone number, all of that important information so that the university and our team has your most up-to-date information. And you'll also access your academic information here. This is where you'll have access to enrollment tools to help you add and drop courses, which will become very important when course enrollment comes around. You'll also find your fees due to UC Berkeley in this portal, like your health insurance fee, document fees, any late fees that you may incur, and you'll be able to pay these fees through the Cal Central portal. So it's kind of a one-stop shop for a lot of different services related to all things UC Berkeley. Moving on to health and immunizations, you are required by J1 visa regulations to have health insurance while you're here in the US on a J1 visa. And as a UC Berkeley student, you're automatically enrolled in the Student Health Insurance Plan, also called SHIP. For those of you who are considering waiving out of SHIP and using your insurance from your home country, this is an option, but please be advised that most international health insurance plans do not meet SHIP waiver criteria. So make sure that you're looking into the details related to that and plan ahead to be enrolled in SHIP, which is the majority of what the option that majority of students go with. The formal deadline to submit your immunizations and TB clearance records to the Tang Center, which is the University Health Services Center at UC Berkeley. You might hear it referred to as Tang Center or UHS or University Health Services. It's all the same place. But the deadline to submit immunizations and TB clearance records is July 31st, just coming up in about a month. So please make sure that you're taking the steps necessary to submit those things and collect any documentation, and plan accordingly to complete this on time. Otherwise, you will incur a late fee.
Olivia, if I could add, it's come to our attention that students cannot enroll until this is completed. And since their enrollment time starts on July 14th, it's to their advantage to do this as soon as possible and not wait until the deadline.
Yes, that is an excellent point. And today is mid-June, June 23rd, I believe. So you have a couple of weeks. Definitely, as Paulette said, try to get this done as soon as possible. You'll feel so much more relieved once it's done. You can move on and use all of the systems and start enrolling in your classes. And so if you have questions, please feel free to let us know. But the University Health Services website has a lot of detailed information about how to upload this information and what the requirements are. So make sure you're visiting that website. All right, moving on, as you prepare to travel to the US, please keep in mind that there are laws as to what you can or cannot bring into the United States. Perhaps some of you have been to the US before, you may already be familiar with this, but just to kind of reiterate, you will need to check the US Customs and Border Protection website to make sure that you are familiar with what is allowed and what is not allowed in the US. For example, there are certain foods and medications that may be restricted. So maybe something that's very normal in your home country, you wouldn't even think twice about it, but perhaps it could be on this restricted list. So make sure you're checking the Customs and Border Protection website and plan to pack accordingly. You'll also want to check the weather in Berkeley and the San Francisco Bay Area so that you bring the right clothes for your stay. The weather here is on the mild side. It's not super hot in the summer. A lot of people will come to San Francisco in the summer and bring their tank tops and shorts and think that it's going to be a summer sunny holiday. And in fact, they end up being really cold because it can actually be foggy and cold here sometimes in the summer. But overall, it is a pretty mild climate. We have what is referred to as microclimates in the San Francisco Bay Area and in the East Bay. So even Berkeley sometimes has a different climate or different temperature than San Francisco, which is just across the bay. So make sure you're checking on whatever weather app or website just to get a sense of what the weather will be like when you arrive, and be prepared to pack accordingly. And as you can see on the slide, there's some temperatures listed for you, but be prepared for a lovely time here in the Bay Area. And as I mentioned earlier, if you're planning to bring food items into the US, please check the cbp.gov website to see if there are any restrictions. There are some items that you may be required to declare, and if you don't declare them, they can result in a fine. So that would mean declaring at the customs when you get to the airport. And for those of you that are bringing over-the-counter medications or prescription medications, please make sure that you're bringing them in their original packaging. And we also recommend that you bring a prescription letter written by your doctor for any prescription medications as extra documentation. That will also be useful if you need to refill that medication when you're here in the US, so that you have all of the necessary documents to provide here as well, in addition to at the airport if they were to search your bag and had any questions. If you are bringing electronic devices from abroad, don't forget to bring a plug adapter for them and a converter if needed. Most everything you need will be available here, so try not to pack too heavily, but make sure that you check with your airline in advance to see what the maximum weight might be. And if there's anything special from your home country that you might not be able to find here, you can perhaps prioritize that in your luggage, and be ready to purchase other more kind of day-to-day items here in the US. And I'll pass it to Amy now.
Thank you, Olivia. So in terms of your travel documents for entry into the US, you must have these documents on hand with you as you pass through customs. So please do not keep these documents into your checked baggage or anywhere else that you cannot access. You will actually need to show them to the immigration officer at the port of entry into the US. Proof of vaccination and proof of negative COVID test is no longer needed, but proof of vaccination will need to be shown before you can board the flight. So as you plan ahead, a few things to keep in mind in regards to your travel documents. Your passport needs to be valid at least 6 months into the future at all times. If your passport will fall within this time frame while you're at Berkeley, I highly recommend that you get it reviewed prior to your arrival to Berkeley. Since this is an important identification document, I'd also recommend that you make a copy of your passport and visa page to carry around with you while you're here instead of the original. Keep the original in a safe place that you can easily remember and locate in case of an emergency. Since EAP students will be here on the J1 visa, you'll need to obtain the J1 visa for entry into the US, and this can be done at the US Embassy. Once you have been issued the US visa, please check your visa for accuracy. Make sure that you were issued a J1 visa, and also check the expiration date of the visa itself. Check the entry category because it tells you whether you can enter just one time on this visa or multiple entries are allowed. Also, everyone gets an M. Almost everyone gets an M, and that stands for multiple entry. So please make sure that you're looking at your visa in detail once you've received it. So in terms of the DS 2019, if you've completed the NIF, you should have already received the DS 2019 from us. On the DS 2019, I would highly recommend that you review it carefully, check the program start and end dates. Particularly for the program start date, you may arrive into the US no more than 30 days prior to this program start date. And so that means that your earliest entry, assuming that you got an August 17 start date, the earliest entry for you into the US would be July 18, 2022. And based on the program end date, you must depart the United States within 30 days after this program end date. On the right-hand corner of this DS 2019 itself, once you've arrived at Berkeley, we will give you a travel signature, as you will need that travel signature if you are planning to have or planning to do any international travels while you're here in the United States. Service fee receipt. So in order to make your US visa appointment, you will need to pay your service fee online. And you can do that here on the website, fmjfee.com. And I believe that's $220. Once you've made that payment, go ahead and print out that CVS-free receipt, as you'll need to bring that receipt to the consulate or embassy during your visa appointment. And you also need that receipt on hand for entry into the United States. So going over the vaccination and COVID tests, so effective June 12, 2022, so very recently, CDC no longer requires a negative pre-departure COVID-19 test. However, the United States is still requiring proof of vaccination prior to boarding the airplane. So I would highly recommend that you review CDC's website for definition of what fully vaccination means and what type of vaccines are approved. If you're not fully vaccinated based on certain exceptions by CDC, you may need to be tested after arrival, self-quarantine or self-isolate. You would also need to agree to be vaccinated upon arrival into the US. If you're crossing into the United States via land or ferry from Canada or Mexico, Department of Homeland Security will require a non-US individual seeking entry into the United States to be fully vaccinated for COVID-19 and provide related proof of vaccination. So I would highly recommend that you review our COVID-19 FAQ page for more information. As information changes from CDC and the government, we will update our COVID-19 FAQ page. So let's talk about your arrival into the US. Once you've landed at most likely San Francisco International Airport, you will go through US Customs and Immigration. Generally, as you pass through immigration, that process should take you 2 to 5 minutes to speak with the immigration officer. This is the time where you will have to present all of the travel documents that we have just gone through to the CBP officer, as they will need to review those documents. Once you've passed customs and immigration, you would then need to think about how you can get to Berkeley. One of the most common ways for students to get to Berkeley is to take the BART. And so the BART from San Francisco International Airport to downtown Berkeley takes roughly around 45 minutes. If you're landing at Oakland International Airport, there's also a BART, and that takes about 30 minutes. So keep in mind that if you're taking the BART, the destination for you to get off at is at downtown Berkeley, if that's where your housing is going to be at as well. Some of the other options available to you are shuttle service, taxis or rental cars, and then ride applications such as Uber and Lyft. Uber and Lyft is one of the other popular options as well. I would say if you're planning to take Uber or Lyft, go ahead and download the app on your phone. And San Francisco International Airport actually has a public Wi-Fi that you can access to go ahead and request for an Uber or Lyft ride to wherever you're going to. So let's talk about orientation. Berkeley International Office will host an international student orientation, and this is happening on Wednesday, August 17, 2022. Time will be 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. and this is an in-person orientation located at Grinnell Building. Orientation attendance is mandatory, so I would highly recommend that you prepare in advance to attend this orientation. If you haven't yet, go ahead and register and see the schedule on our website, and you can go through that using this link right here. Paulette had also sent out some information to us yesterday. So for those of you who are going to live on campus, I believe that housing move-in date is on August 16th. So if you're living on campus, take that into account as well as you book your flight tickets here to the US. Golden Bear orientation is the University of California's orientation, and it has two parts to it. So the first one is the online prep, and that opens on July 19 to August 12. The online program provides an overview of UC Berkeley and your transition to campus. And then there's a mandatory in-person orientation that is happening from August 18 to 22. The orientation will help you find connections, find resources, and experience the campus. I believe there is also a campus tour inbuilt into this orientation. So participation in both is mandatory. So just to recap, participation in both bio orientation and Golden Bear orientation is mandatory. After your arrival into the United States, we have to activate your J1 record. For us to activate your J1 record, you need to do two things. Firstly, you need to update your local address and phone number on your Cal Central. and then you need to upload your I-94 arrival record to our website. Everything can be done online, and assuming that it goes smoothly, it should take about 10 minutes only. Sometimes there may be issues with accessing your I-94. If you have issues with accessing your I-94, if you can't find it, if the website is not populating that information for you, you can reach out to Berkeley International Office and we can assist you with that. So I touched on this briefly earlier on, but the travel signature on your DS 2019 is needed if you plan to travel internationally during your program here. So for an example, if you're here during the fall semester and would like to travel to Canada or Mexico during your Thanksgiving break or winter break, you'll need a travel signature for re-entry into the US. To get a travel signature, come to Berkeley International Office and we can give that to you prior to your departure from the United States. Olivia.
Okay, so now that we've talked about a lot of the logistical things that you'll have to do prior to arriving, and then once you arrive in Berkeley, we want to talk about the fun stuff too, like making connections with other students and other students here in the program. I saw that there's a WhatsApp group in the chat. That's awesome. We really want you to, connect as a group and also connect with students on campus. So we will be Amy's office will be hosting Bio Bear meetups. Those will be taking place during the first month of the semester, and you'll be receiving more information at orientation. So we have some photos here from past ones. And then in addition to that, we have a lot of other Berkeley visiting students on campus who are not affiliated with UCEAP, but they're obviously international students just like you all. So there's lots of opportunities to connect with them as well. You'll see some pictures here on the slide from some events that we hosted in the spring semester. So we had a Valentine's Day craft and game night. We've hosted a couple of hikes throughout the semester. We also took students to a San Francisco Giants game. So there's lots to get excited about and lots of opportunity to connect with other international students on campus. So just be sure to check your Berkeley email for those invitations and more information throughout the semester. And in addition to that, there's also opportunity to get involved on campus, with other UC Berkeley students who are not necessarily international students. There are tons of student organizations. You'll probably be meeting a lot of them or hearing from a lot of them at orientation. You can also visit lead.berkeley.edu to learn more about the different organizations. There are a ton. It's a little overwhelming, but that also means that there's probably something for everyone. So whatever you're interested in, you can find something on campus. If you're interested in sports, there's intramural sports, club sports, also just the recreational sports facility where you can exercise on your own. There's also, student groups that are categorized into unique communities based on identity groups or pretty much anything. So you can look online to find those, and you'll find them also on Sproul Plaza. When you arrive to campus, you'll see a lot of them set up at tables talking about their club and recruiting new members. Additionally, you can find leadership opportunities through the Berkeley International Office. You can reach out to Amy if you have questions about that. There's also community engagement opportunities through the Public Service Center. And as well, there's jobs and internships that a lot of students are interested in. You will need permission from the Berkeley International Office before starting any work. So you'll have to check in with them and check on their website and speak to an international student advisor there if you're interested in those options.
All right, so that concludes our presentation. But as I had mentioned at the start of our presentation, we have a very current EAP student with us. Her name is Sophia, and she has graciously agreed to share her experience with us here. And you could also go ahead and place your questions that you would like to ask or to discuss with Sophia, and we can assist you with that. So just as a brief introduction, Sophia is from Spain. She was here as a EAP student from fall 2021 to spring 2022, and she was part of the College of Business program here. Sophia, so just as starters, hi, thank you, welcome for agreeing to speak with us today and to speak with the students. I guess my first question to you is, housing, right? How did you plan for housing when you heard that you got admitted to UC Berkeley?
Hello everyone. I hope you hear me well. And first of all, thank you for being here with us. It's a pleasure for me to be talking to you today. The way I got into the international house, that is the type of accommodation I chose to stay for my in Berkeley. It was because of a recommendation of a friend. She told me about Berkeley and how my experience was gonna be and how could I have access to an international social circle. And this is why I chose the international house, because of the multiple social benefits it has. I think it's more like it's easier to meet international people and make bigger groups if you are staying in a residence instead of sharing a flat with no more than 4 people. So this is why I select this option. I think it allowed me to get access to many different people from many different backgrounds without making a lot of effort, just without moving from my accommodation.
Okay. So I see some comments here that students had reached out to International House and they had already commented that it's already full, unfortunately. I'm so sorry to hear that. Yeah, I was just looking at their website yesterday and they were saying that they still are accepting applications. So I guess the website is not updated, but thank you for letting us know that information. So Sophia, going back to your experience, so you stayed in International House. Were you also part of student organizations on campus, or how did you make connections on campus?
Well, so my first source of international people was the International House, as I already said, and then classes are a good opportunity to meet people, but I think it's not super easy to make a lot of connection just for the fact of being together in class. So I will say the best way is to meet a big group of international people that share your same interests and that are willing to do the same activities as you, and maybe introduce yourself with them to the international community in Berkeley by joining different associations, clubs, activities organized for international people by the international office, and this kind of stuff, in which you can meet people with your same mindset of making the most of the experience and that are going to be willing to spend the time in the ways you want as well.
Thank you for sharing that. So pivoting on to a different topic, let's talk about academics here. How easy was it for you to get into the classes that you wanted to get into? Did you pre-plan those classes prior to coming here? Did you discuss that with your host institution, or how did you get enrolled into those classes?
It was quite complicated for me, but taking into account that I'm studying a double degree in law and business, it was really difficult for me to find law courses, because the law system in Spain is different from the American one. So that's a really big difference. But for example, for business, it was really easy to find similar courses to validate in my study plan in my home university. So I think you have to well prepare your study plan and have a lot of options, not only for the validations back at your home university, but also for the schedule conflicts you may have. Or I mean, there are a lot of courses that the University of California, Berkeley offers. So I think that's not going to be a problem. But you have to prepare in advance that maybe some of the courses won't finally be offered. For example, that happened to me, that I looked for the course catalog maybe I don't know, on May or June last year, and then the actual courses were some of them were different. So I had to look for new options for my study plan. But the good point is that you make the enrollment, I think it's on July or something like that. And then on September, you can change some courses based on the availability at the beginning of the semester. So there are many options. You're not gonna run out of courses.
Thank you for sharing that. So let's compare the different academic styles that we have. So how did you feel, or how was your experience with the academic style here at UC Berkeley compared to your home institution?
I will say for me, it was the first 2 months were the worst ones because you have to get adapted to a new language. And although you have a good level of English, or not that good, but you can follow classes, it's difficult to have everything in English, not only attend the classes, but also do the assignments and participate in class and everything in another language that is not your mother tongue. So I would say it's really, for me, it was difficult to be more self-confident about my communicative skills at the beginning, but then you get used to the new environment and it's easier. And then in terms of the educational system, I would say that taking into account that I was studying in High School of Business, there were a lot of teamwork assignments, a lot in comparison to my home university. And it was an amazing opportunity for me to meet new people, meet new ways of doing things, having the opportunity to cooperate, to solve conflicts, to agree with others in how to present something or how to do this thing or the other. So I think it was much more enriching for me doing teamwork assignments than just writing a paper in whatever topic. So I really value that way of teaching, especially in the High School of Business, based on my experience. It was not the only college that used the teamwork system, but based on my experience, this is what I can say.
Thank you for sharing that. So let's pivot to something a little bit more fun. How did you prepare for your arrival into the US? What were some necessary items that you brought along with you to help you adjust to your stay here at Berkeley?
I will say that there's nothing you cannot buy in the US. So, but what I tried to do was like like a luggage list in which I wrote everything that was necessary based on the bio webinar we attended last year, and also based on my own necessities. For example, my contact lens that are super important for me, or my glasses, or I don't know, clothes, some books to read, laptop, electronic devices, chargers. Yeah, I would say that.
Did you bring any personal pictures that you put up to help you adjust or I guess make your living space a little bit more friendly?
Yeah, not really. I mean, all the photos we have, we got it in our mobile phones. Right, so for some people, it's important or special to print those photos and bring them with them in this experience. But for me, it wasn't a special thing. But for some people, it is. And some people, yeah, some friends printed some photos and then they put it on the wall of their rooms. It depends on each one's style.
Would you also mind sharing with us what are some fun activities did you do while you were here at Berkeley? Did you, go to Lake Tahoe? Did you travel to other places to have a look at the US?
Yeah, so fortunately, I got a really dynamic group. We were all willing to make a lot of plans and a lot of trips. So we actually travel a lot. We went, the first trip we did was a day trip to Santa Cruz. And then we went on a road trip on Thanksgiving. That is like a break that is in the middle of November, and it was about a week. So we went on a road trip through like across Nevada, Arizona, and Utah, all the Grand Canyon, the national parks, Las Vegas, and this kind of places, and it was amazing. And it was like the first big trip. Then we went to LA for a weekend, and then I went home. I went to Spain on Christmas, but then on January we went to Hawaii for a week, and it was such an amazing experience. And then we went to the Pacific Northwest. That is like a road trip across Oregon and Washington, the two states that are on the north of California. And then we went to, like, we did the road one, the highway one, and we went to San Diego, Santa Barbara, LA, and this place. And I think one of the most enriching parts of this experience is traveling. So if you can afford it, or there are many different ways of traveling. Some are more expensive, other more like cheaper. So what I will say is to meet with people that have your mindset and are willing to make big trips, because I think those are really unique opportunities of the States. There are many different places to visit that are really near to San Francisco, to Berkeley. So I would say traveling is a great opportunity to socialize and live a unique experience.
Sounds like you did a lot. You've actually done more than what I have done being in the Bay Area for the past 5 years. So I think I certainly take advantage of the situation of me being here permanently. But for students like you who are here temporarily, you are so brave and so adventurous to go out and have a look and to make full use of your experience here in the US. Those are some of my questions that I had. Olivia, Paulette, or any other students, do you have questions for Sophia about her experience?
I have a random question I always like to ask students. Sophia, what was your favorite class that you took in your 2 semesters at UC Berkeley?
There are different courses that I really liked and I really enjoyed. I really love accounting, so I did 2 courses in accounting, one in managerial, another in financial, and I really like the one in financial accounting. It was quite difficult, but I enjoyed. And then HAS offers many different courses that are not really related to the most technical part of business, but more to the leadership and personal development part of a leader and a business person. So one of the courses that made a greater impact on me was a course that was called Leadership and Personal Development, and it was focused on yourself and your development and how your past experiences shape you, and how could you improve your shortcomings or this kind of things. And it was really interesting because in my home university they don't offer this kind of courses. I think it's a really American thing, and especially this kind of students like us that are international students. I think it's a really good opportunity to be in touch with a different academic system and different way of learning teaching, in my case, business, but there are many different courses in different fields of knowledge. So that one was really good. And then I did another one in international conflict. And it was really interesting as well.
We have a question here in the chat box. And so a student is asking, was it easy to manage your time between traveling and studying while at Berkeley?
Yeah, I will say yes, but it depends on your mindset, because at my home university, I usually study on weekends, but here in Berkeley, as everyone has the same mindset of making the most out of the time, I think what we shared was like the mindset of let's work a lot during the week and we have the whole weekend free, except for those periods of exams, or if you have an exam on Monday, you can't go on a trip during the weekend. But on general basis, I think the key is to organize yourself and do all your assignments during the week, and this way you can go on a trip the weekend. I don't mean being on a trip 4 times a month, but maybe once a month, or just doing some activities in the Bay Area, because the Bay Area has a lot of different interesting activities to do. So I would say that. Take another mindset, because it's just 1 year or just 1 semester, so you have to make the most of out of the time, and you have to live the real American experience.
Sophia, did you take any decal classes while you were at Berkeley?
No, I didn't. I have some friends that had like decal classes, but I don't really remember what were they about. But I think that these courses are a really good opportunity, because they are not really time demanding. It's just 1 or 2 hours per week, and they are really interesting topics if you wanna take a look at them.
Yeah, to explain, a decal class is a student initiated course. So it allows you could create one, or you could take a decal class. It's just 1 unit, and usually the student will come up with an idea and then identify an instructor who's at the Berkeley campus to be working on that with them. And it could be varied. It could be a class about counting cards. It could be a class about some popular theme in a television show and how that relates to life. It can be very, very interesting to look at all of the decals. And you might find yourself in a situation where you need just 1 extra unit. And so grabbing a decal class is fun, and it gets you up to that unit level that you need.
Absolutely. And I believe, if I'm not wrong, I heard that there was a decal class about Harry Potter as well. So there are some really fun decal classes out there that you might want to look into. Sophia, out of curiosity, did you have any campus jobs?
No, I didn't, because I was I joined 2 clubs during my stay there, so I didn't have that much time. But a friend of mine was working on the dining hall, and I think it's a really good opportunity to earn money, and I think the wages are $17.5 per hour, so that's a really good salary. And you can, I think it's easy to combine the student job with your current tasks as a student. So I think it's a really good opportunity to earn money on campus. And there are many different opportunities. There are some jobs in the dining hall, others in the library, others in the gym. So yeah.
All right.
Sophia, is there anything you wish you had known before you came here?
This is a really good question, but no, not really. I think it's really helpful to hear from others' experiences, especially on how other people, how are other people's perspectives of the same experience. But I think there are some things that you have to be discovering while you are here. So not really. I think it's really useful to look at the associations and clubs the university offers, because there are a lot of them. And for example, I was trying to apply for the United Nations model, but I take it late, and the deadline was already passed, so I wasn't able to join that opportunity. So I will say to look at those activities in advance and write down the deadlines, take those in mind.
Yeah. So there's a question here about internships in the US. Sophia, I know just by your record itself, you did not do an academic training upon completion of your program, but did you have friends or others who probably did an internship between or after programs? And I don't know if you can speak of their experience, but how did they find that internship?
Yeah. I got some friends who were looking for internships since the beginning of the semester, like in September, October. And some of them, I mean, it's quite difficult to find good internships. You have to work a lot, but at the end you get something. And I have a friend of mine that had the idea. He was graduating this year, so he just graduated 1 month ago. So he was willing to stay in the US after his graduation, and actually he did it, and he got a part-time job on November, I think. I mean, he became full-time on February. So he had to work really hard, but during the first months of the first semester of the fall, just looking for applications, doing interviews, this kind of stuff. And then he got a really good job. And I got another friend that was looking for a summer internship, and he got one, and he's really, really happy with his experience. He's learning a lot, and he's earning money. So yeah, and I will say that if you have the idea of doing an internship, check it as soon as possible and look for job applications and interviews, and use the university resources in terms of internships and jobs as soon as possible. And in this way, you will get more chances to look for what you are looking for in terms of internships and positions.
So we have a question about how do you know, or how do we find advisors? So just answering that question, I've placed all of the advisors according to which college you're in. These are the advisors who are in charge of advising enrollment or academics for EAP students. You will also meet these advisors at the Berkeley International Office student orientation. So they will be there. They will give you pointers or tips on how to enroll into classes, how to find classes, and what are the necessary requirements to properly maintain status with your college as well. So you can certainly reach out to them ahead of time, but you will see them at Berkeley International Office orientation. And then insurance, about health insurance, Paulette has already answered that. Yes, so EAP students are automatically enrolled into the SHIP health insurance due to enrollment in classes. If you want to waive out of that, you would have to take additional steps to waive that SHIP insurance. But as we had mentioned in this presentation, it is very rare for an EAP student to be able to waive a SHIP insurance unless that insurance meets the criteria for the waiver itself. Okay. Would you have any recommendations for finding undergraduate research? So undergraduate research, most times it goes through the professor. Maybe if you have a good experience with a professor and you know that they are working on some research that maybe you are interested in, you could certainly reach out to them and ask if you can take part in that, or if they could provide you with some insight to that. I'm sure there are professors on campus who are more than willing to share that experience and share that knowledge with you. Okay. So okay, Claire, I unfortunately will not be in Berkeley on August 17. Can I still meet up for international students after? Yes, you can still meet up with international students after, but I'm more concerned about you not being in Berkeley on August 17. I would highly recommend that you change or make adjustments to your travel plans in order to be here on time, because participating in orientation is one of the first steps to properly maintain your J1 visa status. It's not a requirement of bio, it's actually a requirement for your visa status.
So should I answer the question about enrollment?
Yeah.
The question is, do we need or not need approval from advisors before enrolling? The answer would be maybe. It really depends on the class that you're trying to enroll in. If that class has any restrictions on who can enroll in the class or some prerequisites, you should be able to look at that when you're looking at the schedule, the class schedule. It will tell you the requirements for the class and who is eligible and what you need to do. If you do need approval, then you should approach the advisors that are on the list that we sent links to. And it depends very much on your college as to how you will be requesting assistance for enrolling. In certain colleges, you will have received information, or you can see on our list of advisors, you have a specific person designated to you. If you're in the College of Letters and Science, which is a huge college, you will probably be interacting more with the department advisor and with the individual instructors in order to get any needed approvals. Do that research in advance and find out if you need it, so that when your enrollment time comes, you're ready and that you can make best use of your time.
Okay. Kosuke had a question about bicycle. So of course it's difficult to bring their own bicycle from their own home country. Is there any rental services or any other ways to use a bicycle on campus? So I believe there are rental stations for bicycles and scooters on campus. Olivia, correct me if I'm wrong. There are, right? Like those green pods that I see sometimes like right by the bus stops where they have bicycle racks there.
Yes, there are some. I don't know if you wanted a bike for a more long-term period, that might not be as convenient. I mean, depends on what your use is, obviously. I have heard of a bike service. I don't know too much about it, but I'll put it in the chat, called Joe Bike. I think it's a subscription-based bike service. So again, would be good for like a shorter term use if you didn't want to like buy a new bike here in the US. I would also say if you were looking to purchase a bike, maybe like relatively inexpensively, you could always check on, you know, Facebook or Craigslist to see if someone is selling like a used bike. That could be an option. But I don't know, Sophia, if you or your friends really biked much, or if they did, how your friends got bikes?
For example, in the international house, there were a parking only for bikes, and people really use them to move across the campus. But it also depends on where your college is. For me, that was harsh. It was just 5 minutes by walking. But for others, it's really useful to have a bike. A friend of mine bought one at the beginning of the semester, and then he sold it, and he got all his money back. So I think it's a really good opportunity if you usually use it.
Mhm. And I would say
Also-
that, oh,
It's not super flat there. And so you might want to consider, once you see where you're living, if the bike is for recreation to go out on the weekends, but it might not be practical as a mode of transportation.
correct. One other thing that I wanted to add was there are a lot of students who are graduating or who have graduated in spring who are moving out at the end of summer, or graduating and moving out at the end of summer where they cannot bring some of these items along with them. So what Olivia had mentioned, to look at some of these Facebook groups are really helpful, because I'm part of this Facebook group and I see students putting up their furniture online, or some passbooks or even bicycles online to help offload so that they can move to wherever their next destination is. So that is a good thing to look into. Jessica, your question. So you need a US permanent address in order to make a visa interview, but you don't have a US permanent address yet. So which address could you use? Yes, you can certainly use Berkeley International Office's address, and you can find that from our website under contact information. So that would be 2150 Shattuck Avenue, Suite 500, Berkeley. Question, does it make sense to buy a car and sell it after the semester? I mean, it really depends on your budget. But again, you know, if you buy a car and if you're living on campus, parking is expensive. So you have to take that into account as part of your budget as well. How easy is it to sell your car? Again, you know, it really depends on the time of the year, what type of car you have, and you know, a little bit of luck as well in that area. But I would say if you're here for a short-term temporary basis, it's probably not the right option to buy a car, just because even if you're thinking about traveling to other places like downtown San Francisco, or even in California itself, generally parking is expensive. So you know, if you're not doing that on a daily basis or every weekend, it probably doesn't make sense to get a car while you're here.
You also need to consider additional costs such as insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
depending on your age, you may want to look into car rental.
All right, you had the next question. So I would like to inquire if the visa expiration date should be 12 May. I think it's exactly the final day of spring concern. Okay, yeah. So as far as we know, the J1 visa duration is for the exact duration of your DS 2019 itself. So unless you're extending the DS 2019 for internship post-program, then your visa will be for the current duration of your DS 2019, which would end in spring 2023, May 12, 2023. Okay. Question, where can I get the wait list for the orientation? Do you mean to register? If you're talking about BIOS orientation, you can do so via new students, join orientation, and then transfer EAP orientation. There's a registration link right here on the site. Question for Sophia. I am going to study at Haas Business School. Did you have a contact before enrolling? Paula has placed that there. Renee, come on, Brenna. All right. Some other questions here. Okay.
Is it useful, Amy, to clarify that there's difference between the visa and the DS 2019? So even when you get to the end of the year in May and your visa might have expired, unless you need to leave the country and come back, that's not a big deal.
Correct. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, so the visa is the stamp that you get in your passport when you go for your visa appointment at the US Embassy, right? The visa, you need to have a valid visa for entry into the US, but it does not dictate your ability to remain in the US based on the expiration date. It just tells you how many times you can use this visa and until when you can use this visa for entry into the US. So think about the visa like a key and the US as a house, right? You need the key to go inside the house. Once you're inside the house, you don't need the key anymore, right? What dictates that you can stay in the house is a contract that you have with the landlord, right? The US government. The contract is your DS 2019, okay? So there is a start date and the end date here on the contract, your DS 2019. So on this date, on the program end date, that is when you can remain in the house or remain in the US unless you have extended that contract by saying that you want to find employment in the US and you have been authorized for that, and we gave you an extended DS 2019, an extended contract to remain here, you will have 30 days to depart from this program end date. So that's the difference between the visa and the DS 2019. So keep in mind, once you're inside the house, you don't need the key. But if your visa expires, so let's say if you extend your DS 2019 because you found an internship post program during your summer or during the winter break as an example, but your visa has expired and you want to go home as a Christmas and then you want to come back in January to begin your internship, right? You actually need to renew that visa before you can come back into the US. So that is a deeper advising that we probably have to get with you individually, but that's the difference between the DS 2019 and the visa itself.
You have an awesome amount of time. You have 30 days, even if you don't want to extend to do an internship, you have 30 days of a grace period when you can stay in the US after your program is over. I think though, Amy, during that time, you shouldn't plan to go to Mexico and come back,
correct,
right?
Yeah, right, no, yeah. So
during the grace period, you want to stay.
Right, yeah. So once you're in your grace period, although you have 30 days to prepare for your departure from the US, but let's say if you depart 10 days into your 30 days, right, but you have gone to Canada, you have forfeited the rest of your 20 days. Once you've departed the US on your grace period, you will not be able to re-enter on your J1. Great questions. So just a few more minutes here. Does anyone else have any more questions for us or Sophia? So a reminder again, this webinar is being recorded. At the end of this webinar, we will send you a link to our slides so that you can review that again. You're most welcome. All right, so it looks like we do not have any more questions. Oh, yes. Is not everyone welcome to the orientation? Everyone is required to attend orientation, both bio orientation and Golden Bear orientation. There's no wait list for orientation. The wait list that I think people had been discussing in the chat was for housing. So if you wanted to get into housing at International House as an example, some of the other students here had mentioned that there is a wait list for that. But there's no wait list for orientation. All right, looks like we don't have any more questions. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on this webinar. We will see you on August 17th at our International Student Orientation. If you have any questions about anything that we've discussed today, feel free to reach out to us at Berkeley International Office, or to also reach out to Paulette or Olivia. Any one of us can assist you, and if we can't, we will direct you to the appropriate party or the appropriate resource to help you with your inquiry. All right, thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
The special thanks to Sophia
Yes, thank
as
you,
well
Sophia,
for
so
being
much
here.
for sharing your experience with us.